You're watching Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. Tonight, we are going to explore that conversation of digitization in Malaysia and, most importantly, how Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint, or MDEB, is working out. Joining us for this interview, we have on the line Fabian Bigar, the CEO of MyDIGITAL Corporation. Fabian, thanks for taking the time to speak with us. I want to ask you a few things when it comes to the business of MyDIGITAL, but more importantly, perhaps you can tell us briefly about the recent MyDIGITAL Progress Report and what are some of the key achievements that the report has achieved.
Okay, thank you, Ibrahim. We unveiled the progress report on the 8th of March, and it charts the progress of the achievements made by the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint for the last 10 months. Malaysia, number one, Malaysia continues to be a destination for high-value digital investments, with a total of 16.5 billion in digital investments approved by the government in 2021, on track to achieve our 70 billion target by the year 2025. And then last year, 1.3 million higher education students were able to purchase affordable devices and plan packages through collaboration with the private sector service providers, enabling connectivity and access to online learning. 4.4 million students were able to enjoy distance learning via the Digital Education Learning Initiative Malaysia, or the LIMA platform, as part of efforts to ensure students have access to digital learning facilities. And on the front of utilities, the Cabinet and all state governments have agreed to recognize communication services as a public utility in 2021. So all states in Malaysia have agreed to adopt the Communications Infrastructure Planning Guidelines, or GPPI, as the main reference to ensure digital infrastructure planning can be planned in a more orderly fashion that is inclusive and has a balanced aesthetic value. And in terms of in the government public sector, 78% of all federal ministries, departments, and statutory bodies offered cashless payment options in 2021. Our target is, for all to accept by end of the year. And as for E2E end-to-end services, in 2021, 68% of government services are end-to-end, and as of last year, where services are implemented entirely online from start to finish. And in the area of manufacturing, 24 pilot sites were identified and implemented under the Smart Manufacturing Intelligent Service Platform, or SMISP program in 2021, a technology lab and collaboration platform via public-private partnership. And these sites are integrating technology solutions to facilitate the adoption of Industry 4.0 technology among the manufacturers. In a nutshell, that's the a list of some of the achievements that we have got last year.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you can also talk to us through some of the items that were not yet achieved. What would be some of the things that yet to be checked off the checklist of MyDIGITAL?
Well, in general, for the phase one, that is until 2021, there are 58 initiatives. I will just name some of the initiatives. For example, you need to introduce the national digital ID. I think that's ongoing, and efforts are underway to look at various regulations and regulatory guidelines to ensure that we are on track, or to prepare us to embrace the digital economy. These are few of the things that are still ongoing.
Knowing that these are the factors, how do you intend to resolve these issues, particularly when it comes to completing the tasks that is being given to you guys, in order for you to have a higher completion rate on the objectives that you guys have set for yourselves?
We'll work closely with the various agencies and ministries because, as you know, MyDIGITAL Corporation is the overall coordinator. We are not especially the line agencies that implementation agency, but we have to work closely with them and make sure we track their progress and problem solve where it's necessary.
Because of the constantly rising political risk or a heightened level of political risk that we are on right now. Does this impede on how MyDigital executes the work that needs to be done? How does this impact the work of MyDigital in carrying out the obligations that you guys have right now?
Okay, in terms of this digital economy blueprint, actually there's a clear governance structure. There is actually the National Digital Economy and 4IR Council, chaired by the sitting Prime Minister, and the work is done through various clusters. There are 6 clusters, namely the economy, digital talent, infrastructure and data, society, government, and emerging tech. And these are all actually chaired by various members of the cabinet. I guess a part of it, as far as an interaction is concerned, and uh, my digital corporation and the blueprint actually is embedded in our 12 Malaysia plan. So for us, the work carries on regardless of the political situation.
Fabian, let's go through some of the big ideas of the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint. We've had a lot of conversations on this over the past few years, but perhaps it's good to recap into some of the goals and objectives of the MyDigital Blueprint, Digital Economy Blueprint right now.
Okay, so the blueprint was launched in February last year. It's a crucial initiative in realizing the Top Malaysia Plan. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's mentioned in the Top Malaysia Plan. It's just that the blueprint provides more clarity in terms of objectives, in terms of initiatives. Well, the whole idea is, of course, to transform Malaysia into a digitally enabled and technology-driven high-income country by 2030, and it's implemented in actually 3 phases for the next 10 years until 2030. I mean, so the first phase is actually this year and next year. And to realize the aspiration of the My Digital Blueprint, um, the blueprint provides the direction, strategies, initiatives, and targets, to build the foundation for us to drive the growth of the digital economy, including, things like digital divide. How do we bridge them? Because, as you know, the risk of going into digitalization, there will be people who will be left behind. So it aims to empower all Malaysians from all walks of life to improve their lives by improving digital literacy, creating high-income jobs, making transactions such as banking and finance transactions easier and seamless, to provide quality virtual education access for children, bringing medical facilities to remote towns, and finally, of course, bridging the digital divide across all segment of our society.
One of the key items, of course, is trying to not just deliver that whole ecosystem of the digital economy. It's also important for us to talk about the infrastructure that is required. Say, for instance, the ongoing conversation on the 5G network, whether on a single wholesale network, dual wholesale network, MNOs owning a single wholesale network. Those are the kind of things that we want to talk about. Perhaps even Jendela, the program that is being rolled out right now by the government for 4G network inclusivity in other areas. But more importantly, what would be some of the key items when it comes to improving the infrastructure network right now in Malaysia?
Yeah, because under the blueprint, there's also areas such as infrastructure, improving the infrastructure connectivity. That is actually part of the Jendela program that is championed by the Ministry of Communications, and we do see, we do track the progress, and we can see the improvement in, the implementing or rolling out the communication infrastructure, especially in the rural areas.
Fabian, based on the progress report, the usage of e-payments is actually quite interesting for merchants and consumers alike. When we see the transactions per capita achieved in 2021, perhaps can you share with us some of the contributing factors leading to these changes?
Okay, as you rightly pointed out, efforts to boost the usage of e-payments for merchants, consumers have been quite successful, and the payment facilities actually, according to data, have increased substantially last year, with 36 payment facilities per 1,000 users. And The increase of adoption, of course, primarily is driven by the increasing
Could you say that number again? I just, I
36 payment facilities per 1,000 users.
is that a lot?
Well, I mean, it's an improvement from the previous numbers, but what is important here, later the statistics will show, I will mention the increased in rates of what do you call it, usage. Okay, but first of all, of course, to answer your question, the shift of consumers towards contactless payments and online payment methods in shopping, primarily due to the MCO, of course, but and the convenience of it. But based on what Google's e-economy Southeast Asia report 2020 report, the e-wallets transaction rose to an average of 25% post COVID-19. Indicating that this trend will continue. Consumers will continue to use digital payments given the convenience.
All right. We'll go for one short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more with Fabian Bigar of MyDIGITAL Corporation. Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me on the line Fabian Bigar, the CEO of MyDIGITAL Corporation. Fabian, let's pick up where we left off, which is on the conversation of e-wallets and e-commerce and e-payments. When looking at e-wallets and contactless payments adoption, a market such as Singapore, for instance, is a little bit more matured with the already high degree usage of pre-COVID-19. Leading into COVID-19, we've seen that number spiked up even further. How do you achieve that, for instance, and what's MyDIGITAL Corporation's role in this?
Okay, we constantly engage with government agencies and the industry to intensify communications and outreach efforts to promote e-payment as a safer and more convenient way in making payments. Earlier this month, for example, just to highlight a few examples, earlier this month, MyDIGITAL Corporation collaborated with Bank Negara, Malaysia, and Bank Islam and Kelantan State Government, as well as Persatuan Peniaga Kecil Bumiputera Pasar Besar Siti Khadijah to launch the program Transformasi Digital Pasar Siti Khadijah in Kota Baru. The program aims to promote the benefits of digitalization to both merchants and visitors of the Pasar Besar Siti Khadijah, with a focus on e-payment adoption and guide them through the onboarding process. In fact, what we saw is a lot of the merchants actually do have what we call cashless payment options. However, it's not as sophisticated, because what they do is they put their account number and expect consumers to actually go through your Maybank to you app and transfer the payment. What we want is to make it more convenient to use QR codes provided by the various banking institutions. So in addition to that, we also in talks with the other state governments, namely recently as Kedah, to bring forth our efforts to encourage the more usage of e-payments and contactless transactions among merchants and consumers at the state level. Why we look at all these Pasar Besar is that we know that these options are already available in the big markets and so forth, the supermarket, the malls. But we want to concentrate on the small traders. Okay, so a key a key feature of MyDIGITAL initiative that is crucial to its success is that we adopt a whole of nation approach. So whether we engage with the state government, the federal government, as well as traders and the private sector, to make sure that this is successful.
Can you share a little bit more about the e-commerce landscape in Malaysia? Do you feel that it is a crowded market, a little bit of a red ocean rather than blue ocean? And do you expect some level of consolidation and amalgamation between the players right now in the market?
Okay, in Malaysia, the official figures in 2019 show that e-commerce alone contribute to 127 billion to GDP in terms of GPA, or gross value added. The amount and contribution to the GDP has grown steadily from 7.6% of the GDP in 2015 to 8.5% in 2019 before the pandemic, and finally in 2020, that's the latest statistics we have, to around 12%. So data indicated that 26% of this is attributed to the ICT industry, and the remaining 74% is attributed to e-commerce and other industries. So hence we feel that this trend is still ongoing. As I mentioned earlier, because of convenience, uh, people have actually shifted towards e-commerce. Consumers have shifted towards e-commerce. So we feel that there is room for growth in this area.
There are various initiatives that is being rolled out by MyDIGITAL to boost the adoption of e-commerce, particularly among the micro entrepreneurs and small entrepreneurs. And of course, we're talking about medium-sized enterprises as well. But what's the plan for this year, particularly when it comes to micro and small entrepreneurs?
In Malaysia, of course, many of the MSMEs have already accepted the use of digitalization in a business, whether it's through the payment system, through e-commerce, cashless transactions, and also advertising. So, through platforms such as Google Ads or YouTube. So there are also various e-commerce programs to help people transition into e-commerce, such as the Go e-commerce onboarding, Shop Malaysia and online, and also pupuk or program pemekasaan pendidikan usahawan kecil undertaken by the various agencies under either the Ministry of Multimedia and Communications as well as the Ministry of Entrepreneurial Development. So the plan for this year is actually to intensify our efforts and also to make sure that it's easy to navigate, because sometimes when there are various programs, you need to actually make the participants aware of the various programs by other agencies and make sure some of the benefits that they derive or even for example some of the grant that's given, assistance that's given, easy for them to navigate and make it easier for them to apply. So these are the efforts that we are looking at moving forward.
Fabian, any final words before we end this conversation?
Well, I guess as I mentioned, I always emphasize the whole of nation approach. So we would like to reach out to the private sector, the general public, the academia, to work together to achieve this vision. So it's important that to make sure that no one is left behind, and all the key economic, social, and environmental challenges are recognized and addressed.
All right, thanks, Fabian. That was Fabian Bigar, the CEO of MyDIGITAL Corporation. If you missed any part of this interview, just head on to astroawani.com. Look for MyDIGITAL or Digital Economy Blueprint. You can also look for all the other resources found on Notepad on astroawani.com. Until then, thanks very much for watching and goodbye.